M.R. James, the author of Ghost Stories of an Antiquary, had a very specific way of making the past feel dangerous. He wasn't interested in the typical Gothic castles or weeping ladies in white. Instead, he focused on the things scholars and collectors spend their lives chasing: old books, strange coins, and medieval stained glass. He pioneered what critics call the antiquarian ghost story, where the horror isn't just a jump scare, but a direct consequence of someone digging too deep into a history that was meant to stay buried. One of the most striking stories in his 1904 collection is The Treasure of Abbot Thomas, a tale that takes the classic adventure of a hidden treasure and turns it into a visceral, sensory nightmare. The story centers on a man named Mr. Somerton. He is a methodical, scholarly man, an antiquary by trade, which means his life is dedicated to the study of the past through physical artifacts. He becomes obsessed with a particular piece of stained glass in the Steinfeld Abbey in Germany. The window depicts 3 biblical figures: Job, John, and Zacharias. To a casual observer, it is just a beautiful piece of 16th century craftsmanship, but Somerton believes it holds a secret. He's convinced that it contains a riddle left by Abbot Thomas von Eschenhausen, a man from a much earlier era, regarding a hidden treasure. Somerton's academic curiosity eventually pulls him away from his quiet life and sends him to Steinfeld. He isn't looking for adventure in the traditional sense, he's looking for a way to solve a puzzle. While investigating the window in a private chapel, he makes a startling discovery. There is a layer of black pigment over part of the glass, a deliberate attempt to hide something. When he clears it away, he finds a complex cipher. He realizes that the key to the code isn't found in words, but in the physical gestures of the figures in the glass. By counting the number of fingers extended by Job, John, and Zacharias, he derives a numerical sequence that decodes the message. The message is clear: 10,000 pieces of gold are hidden in a well in the abbey's courtyard, and it is guarded by a sentinel. At this point, the story feels like it might turn into a standard adventure tale. Somerton is joined by his valet, Brown, a steady and professional man who provides a sense of grounded reality to Somerton's growing obsession. They find the well in the courtyard, and it looks exactly as the decoded message suggested. There is a stone slab covering the opening, marked with a peculiar design of 7 eyes. As Somerton begins to pry the slab loose, the atmosphere shifts from scholarly excitement to something much more primal and terrifying. As the stone moves, he isn't met with the glint of gold, but with a violent physical attack. A horrific, multi-limbed creature lunges at him. It isn't a ghost in the sense of a translucent spirit, it is something fleshy, something biological, and it carries with it the overwhelming, nauseating smell of mold. During the chaos of the struggle, Brown catches a glimpse of something else. In the shadows, he sees a grotesque, sunken-faced figure watching them. This figure isn't attacking, it is simply watching, and it is laughing. This detail is crucial because it changes the nature of the threat. The creature attacking Somerton might be a mindless beast, but the figure in the shadows suggests a sentient, malevolent intelligence behind the horror. The encounter leaves Somerton completely broken. He survives the physical attack, but he is changed forever. He returns to England a shadow of the man he once was. He is physically weakened and psychologically shattered, haunted by a persistent, inescapable terror. Even in the safety of his home, he is plagued by that same sickening smell of mold, as if the presence of the creature had left a physical stain on his very senses. The final part of the story introduces Mr. Gregory, a parson from Berkshire, who arrives in Germany to assist the ailing Somerton. When Gregory meets him, he finds a man gripped by an inexplicable, paralyzing dread. Somerton is terrified of the dark. He has become a man who lives entirely by the light, convinced that the things that inhabit the darkness are waiting for him. He gives Gregory a strange, urgent instruction. He must return a certain object to a specific step in the abbey, but it must be done during the bright daylight hours. He is terrified of the people who inhabit the night. The story ends with the chilling realization that the guardian of the abbot's treasure wasn't just a myth or a legend used to keep children away from the well. It is a predatory, lingering presence that follows those who disturb it. A shadow that doesn't stay in the past, but follows the living back into the light. When we look at why this story works so well, we can see how James subverts the classic treasure trope. Usually, a story about finding hidden gold ends with the hero's triumph or their greed being their downfall. In James's hands, the treasure is a trap. The guardian isn't a metaphorical curse or a spiritual test, it is a literal, biological horror. By making the threat something you can smell and something that can physically strike you, James moves the story out of the realm of the spooky and into the realm of the truly unsettling. It's a shift from the psychological to the visceral. There is also a recurring theme of light versus dark that runs through the entire narrative. Light is more than just a way to see, it is a boundary. It is the boundary between human reason and supernatural chaos. Somerton uses a lantern to navigate the dark, and at the end, he refuses to exist in the dark at all. The light represents the world of the scholar, the world of facts, and the world of the living. The darkness represents the other, the things that exist outside the reach of human understanding and historical record. The fact that the horror can follow him into the light through the lingering smell of mold suggests that the boundary is much more porous than we would like to believe. This leads us to the idea of the corruption of history. M.R. James was an expert in the way we interact with the past. For an antiquary, the past is something to be categorized, labeled, and understood. It is something we feel we have mastered through study. But James suggests that the past isn't just a collection of objects, it's a living, sometimes predatory, force. To delve too deep into history, to literally dig up what has been buried, is to risk disturbing things that were meant to remain hidden. The treasure is the lure that brings the modern man into contact with a primordial darkness. The act of research itself becomes a dangerous transgression. The use of sensory horror is perhaps the most effective tool James employs here. We often think of ghosts as things we see, but James focuses on what we smell. The smell of mold is a brilliant choice. It is a scent associated with decay, with damp, enclosed spaces, and with things that have been left to rot in the dark for centuries. By making the smell of mold a persistent part of Somerton's trauma, James ensures the horror isn't just a moment in time. It becomes a permanent part of the protagonist's reality. You can't unsmell something. Once that scent enters your nostrils, it stays with you, a constant reminder that the darkness is never truly gone. The story also plays with the concept of the sentinel. In many stories, a guardian is something that protects something precious. But in this case, the guardian is a part of the treasure itself. The gold and the creature are linked. To seek one is to encounter the other. This makes the pursuit of knowledge or wealth feel inherently predatory. The more Somerton learns, the more he is hunted. His intellectual success is directly proportional to his physical and mental ruin. Ultimately, The Treasure of Abbot Thomas is a story about the consequences of curiosity. It asks what happens when we find exactly what we are looking for, only to realize that we weren't prepared for the reality of it. It suggests that some secrets are not meant to be decoded, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The horror doesn't stay in the ruins of an abbey in Germany. It follows the seeker home, clinging to them like the scent of damp earth in a dark, forgotten well.